Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Flash. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we have Cisco, Ralph and Barry there, trying to get the artificial, Speed Force thing working, which I even love Ralph being like, well, the fact is the only person we're hearing, this talk about is from Eobard, history's most evil speedster. And truth be told is because that's the sad thing. Barry literally has no one else he can turn to. The only other speedster he would turn to for guidance in this situation would be Jay. Earth 3 doesn't exist anymore, so, which is interesting because he met up with Jay and Jay's wife, earlier this season, but it's just, so it's kind of, you have to take Eobard's word on it. But even then, sadly, it did seem like it was working at first. Everything did start slowing down because even the coffee started rising up slowly, but then it fell back because the machine doesn't work. And the sad thing is, for Cisco too, it's like, how did someone like Eobard Thawne come up with something like this, build something like this, and we at Soup can't even put our heads together to make it. It's like all of us putting our heads together should be able to do this. How was he able to do it on his own? I guess showing just how smart Eobard is. Plus, he has the benefit of future technology, so he probably can take stuff that's been, because he's from far in the future. So it's like he could easily build stuff around probably making it so technologies that don't exist yet, things that might not even exist, or things that might be in their infancy that they can't use yet. So, and obviously Cecile's there being like, oh, hey Barry, I'm going to go over to the Citizen. Maybe you want to go? And obviously Barry's so focused on this that he's like, no, I don't want to. So it's like, it's like obviously Cecile trying to play, a little matchmaker, trying to fix things between him and Iris, She's like, maybe you should go see Iris. And so she's like, do you want me to say anything to her? And he's like, just tell her I miss her. So she goes to visit, Iris. And obviously, Eva's talking to fake Iris and fake Camilla. And I thought it was really interesting, though. It's like she was looking at her. She's like, you okay? Because, fake Iris kind of seemed a little off because it's like, yeah, you're planning everything work. But it's like, at first I was like, does fake Iris actually feel bad about manipulating Barry? Does she actually kind of start to care? I was like, is she becoming a little more like Iris where she's actually kind of falling for Barry? So she actually kind of feels a little bad about manipulating him and hurting him like this. But nevertheless, Cecile shows up and she wants to talk to her about it. And obviously it's like, after the whole taking Nora to future thing, I felt he wouldn't do stuff without asking me, but he sent my dad away and didn't even tell me. I had to find out from Sing about what happened. And it's like, how am I supposed to fix something? Like, how are we supposed to kind of repair that? And Cecile was like, I have to start with the fact is, do you shouldn't it start with the fact is, do you want it fixed? And even, it's like, what do you want, Iris? And, she's like, could you use your powers to see what I want? And, she looks at Iris and she's like, you're sad, using her powers, trying to pick up that, she's sad, but that's all she can really read. Because I was wondering, I doubt you'd be able to kind of, because obviously Cecile feels, she's an empath, she feels emotions. So I guess you would be able to distinguish someone by their emotions like that. But nevertheless, she goes back home. There's a whole bunch of boxes there. I'm like, what the hell is Barry up to? And then he breaks the news. He's like, okay, I don't think Iris is Iris. I was like, okay, I'm interested to find out how the hell you came to this conclusion. But basically, he sounds like a madman. He's like, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at that. He's like, just Iris hasn't really been herself lately. So he's been piecing it together. He's like, so he's looking at all, it's like, oh, maybe she has to be like a shapeshifter or something. Because he's like, well, there are metahumans that exist after Crisis and everything that, there's still those that live on, there's still metahumans that exist that can shapeshift. But then he was like, all right, then I'm thinking maybe we're dealing with a Martian type of situation, because obviously there could be more Martians on this earth because, Crisis and everything. But then he's like, yeah, but if there were other Martians on the planet, John Jones would have let us know or something like that. So I was like, that's kind of a negative. But whatever the case may be, because he was also just saying maybe an evil doppelganger, but there's no more Earths in the multiverse, right now. So it's like, so he's like, that's not a possibility. So no evil doppelganger type of situation, which I find ironic and funny just because evil is kind of a stretch. But obviously, it's just funny because obviously Kate's run into a doppelganger of her sister, granted not evil. Then there's a complicated thing of all the other brainies, but those are like very like rare exceptions that I'm sure he's not aware of because those just were isolated incidents type of situation. But nevertheless, Cecile's like wondering if he is a little crazy, but he's bringing up points. So like he's like, the fact of the matter is she knows how to speak Italian now. She broke a bottle over some dude's head, and the fact of the matter is she's been cooking good meals. And Cecile kind of smiles. He's like, no, you don't get it, Cecile. Iris is a terrible cook. So for him, these are signs that like she's just not. He's like, I know how crazy it sounds, but he's like, the real Iris. The fact of the matter is she wouldn't give it, like even if we're fighting and stuff like that, she wouldn't have given up on us. She would have kept fighting. So he's like, I don't know who this is, but it's not my wife. I know how crazy I sound. And because of this, they do a little investigating and they find that picture that Camilla took. And it's like, what? Look at this. And it's like, oh, what was it? A prismatic photo or whatever. It's like, oh, I was right. This isn't Iris. Yeah, so it's like, cause they deleted the photo, but it kind of got backed up and saved into the cloud. So it, or at least into like, it got into the cloud or whatever. So it's like, they have the proof they need, so they confront Iris. I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. I was like, how's she going to flip the script on this? Because it's like, they kind of got you dead to rights. It's Cecile, Barry, and Nash. So I'm like, how are they going to handle this? And so what ends up being the situation is, she's like, how could you, Barry? And she says online, she's like, no matter what happens, I forgive you. And then Barry tries the machine and it doesn't work. I was like, oh, of course it's not. I was like, I was like, oh man, how? I was like, I was so curious, like how she managed to do that. And then she flips the script and makes it reveal that it's like, oh my God, Barry isn't Barry. And I'm like, wait, what? Which begs the question, can the mirrors copy abilities? That's something that hasn't come up yet because everyone that Eva's taken and replaced have all been humans. So like, there's no like copying of meta-human abilities, but I'm wondering, could our reflections, I mean, I'm assuming they're like a true blue reflection, so it's probably a situation of they probably copy everything, you know. So I don't know. I would assume they'd be able to kind of, because I was about to say, like, you know, the fact is he's a speedster and everything should be proof of that, but it's like, well, they don't know how this whole thing works, and once again, even we still don't know 100%. So like I said, so that's not a clear cut, but I'm like, oh man, I was like, how did you do that? And obviously she's like, Cecile, trust me, and she's like, I'm sorry, Barry, and handcuffs him, you know. So it's like, what was originally like, I was like, man, they flipped the script on you hard, dude. And so with that taken care of, he's putting like the pipeline and everything. And obviously, you know, Iris is like, yeah, I need to know where my real husband is. And then Cecile's like, but the fact is, like, for her, it's just like, I don't know, like something just still seems a little off. And even when she's reading like Iris, like she gets an inkling of something, but she can't quite tell what it is, because I think maybe she felt like kind of like Iris's nervousness and agitation along with the I don't know. Maybe doing this to Barry made that sadness in her kind of grow a little bit more. Who knows what it was 100%. But Cecile just kind of got an inkling like, yeah, there's something still just not right. So Iris goes, she's like, oh, we're going to look into McCulloch, because she tried to lead him away, like, oh, maybe this had nothing to do with McCulloch test. Oh, you think this has to do with that reflective test? Oh, yeah, maybe. And it's like, oh, so like even when you try to stray away from it, it still kind of circles back to it. So she ends up meeting up with Singh and Camilla, and it ends up getting revealed like what happened is Eva replaced the machine that they were using with a reverse version. So I'm guessing instead of reading someone at, like, either it was one like from her mirror, like because it's an opposite reflection, maybe it reads like if they probably used it on Nash or Cecile, it probably would have revealed, because it might have been a thing like it reads humans as not right and crystallized people as like I mean, well, it makes sense, because now I'm sitting here breaking it down. It's like, well, it makes sense if it's from another dimension. It reads things like, oh, from the dimension it's from. We're dealing with dimension A, and dimension B is the mirror world. Because the device is from dimension B, the mirror world, it reads everything as, you know, from that world as, oh, you belong here, you're fine. So that's what I'm saying. Like if they probably scanned Nash and Cecile, it probably would have done the same thing that it did for Barry. Maybe not. Who knows? Like maybe I'm overthinking on like how it potentially works, but that was just kind of my thought process. But it seems like the final thing Eva needs is Ramsey, and I'm like, what role is Ramsey? I was like, why do you need Ramsey? And so they get past the guards and everything, and they talk to Ramsey, and it's like they just need a drop of his blood. I was like, how is that? I was like, I'm still couldn't understand it. And he was like, oh, so he kind of feels like, oh, you really are not Iris, because the real Iris would not let me out of here. So it's kind of like the mechanism makes it so that they can't like just getting him out won't be easy, but Camilla sacrifices herself. And Iris is like, whoa, if you do it, like if you use yourself as a means to destroy, his escape, like make it so that it's possible for him to escape, you could die. And she's like, if that's mother's will. So showing that fake Iris is having reservations, whereas like Singh and Camilla are dedicated, And I also like that being a thing of like, oh yeah, this is their mother, like they're siblings, like, so we're our mother's children. So at the same time, you have the real Iris, because she wants to break the mirror. But Eva's like, well, what are you trying to do? She's like, fine, I'm gonna find a real way out of here while you try to break the mirror and stuff like that. Because Iris is like, oh, let's break the mirror and then we can study it piece by piece. Because we already know you can piece it back together. But then Iris notices a button. She opens it and it turns out it's like Eva's lab or something. And she sees I guess the mirrors kind of keep every interaction or whatever kind of saved, like it kind of exists in that waveform. I don't know how to properly explain it, like maybe whatever the case may be. And obviously because Iris isn't from this dimension, looking at it hurts her brain, because like I think her brain's trying to like understand what she's seeing, but it doesn't make sense because it's reversed and everything. Like it's almost like trying to read a language, forcing yourself to read a language you don't understand. But she was able to kind of push through it, and she found out like Eva's lies and stuff like that, and she ends up passing out. And Eva's like, I know the truth hurts. I was like, dude, And so at the same time, Camilla, like I said, sacrificed herself, and then Ramsey attacks him. I was like, oh, this must not have gone according to your plan. But then he's like, what do you want? And she's like, because he's like, I can smell doubt on you. You're not fully set in all this. And she, Iris finally admits she wants to be alive. And he's like, all right. He's like, well, I can get behind something like that. So he ends up giving his blood and getting back inside the jail. Just because for him, he's like, oh yeah, this isn't the only wall. There are other layers to escaping wouldn't be possible right now. But for him, he's like, I'm playing the long game. I was like, now what the hell does that necessarily mean? So he ends up giving them his blood, and we end up finding out later on, like, in what way that blood works. Basically, because of the whole thing, it isn't just Eva, it's all, like, organic matter can't go through. So even if Iris tried to go through, it would have killed her, too. So because I thought that was just BS Eva was coming up with, but obviously because of her reflective ability, she can just naturally heal from it, but Iris would be able to do the same. So it would kill her to cross through. It's not just an Eva thing. Because I thought, like I said, that was just kind of a lie Eva came up with. But basically, they're going to use that machine to kind of basically traveling through dimensions like that tear in it breaks apart organic matter. So they're using his blood works, Ramsey's blood, because it has a healing factor to it, and resonating it with the machine to kind of basically fix that tear in the space in the dimensions, and able to make it so someone can pass through without it killing them. I guess you can almost think of it as like, oh, you're kind of phasing through, almost like maybe while it's hurting you, at the same time the goo is healing you. It's probably more so the former and not the latter, but still. At the same time, Cecile lets Barry out because she's like, I know in my heart that, I'm willing to bet my life on it that you are the real Barry, so go rescue Iris. And he rushes in just as Iris and Eva are talking, and it's like, he's like, I'm going to ask you again, where's my wife? And it turns into actually a pretty badass battle, because we finally get to see like what their fighting is like. And so she she's shapeshifter, so she turns her hands into blades, and obviously because of the whole mirror thing, like there are a whole bunch of mirrors set up, so she's able to just like stab through one mirror and hurt Barry. And obviously he's not at full power and everything, so he got messed up bad, like cut and stabbed here, and like, oh, this sucks. It's like, you're not even at your full speed, and like, how do you fight something like this? The mirror, like even Eva shattering the mirror above him, and then like Iris like jabbing her hands into like the different mirrors, and they all coming out the different shards and stabbing him. I was like, that's rough. Because Eva's almost using this almost as a lesson to Iris to be like, oh, like I was, naive enough to believe that, my love will kind of get me through anything. But it's like, oh, look at this. And even like, fake Iris gloating over Barry is like, oh, yeah, like, oh, all you think about is your real wife, right? But it's like all that time we spent together, all those dates, all the time we spent in bed. And he's like, shut up, stop. It's just like, that once again, that's still got to suck to hear that, like, obviously you've been fooled this entire time. It's still got to suck even on Iris' perspective of knowing like, this fake has been by Barry's side the entire time and he didn't know, so. But it's like but Eva says, my children want what I want. That their will is mine. They feel what I feel. And then obviously Iris kind of pulls the pin on, like, kind of pokes the bear a little bit by being like, oh, the fact of the matter is you still love your husband. She's like, what? No, I don't. I hate him. It's like, yeah, but why do you still call him your husband? The fact of the matter is you go after him. All he's going to do is dupe you again. Like, the fact of the matter is, as smart as you are, you still got, like, she's poking at her because, like, Eva, like, as powerful as she is, still kind of got a little erratic, and that erratic behavior kind of gets, like, it messes, because I guess when she's kind of distressed, it does something to the others because it's messing with Iris. And obviously, like, Barry's able to talk to, like, fake Iris, and he's like, tell, like, what you have a will of your own, because the fact of the matter is you have part of Iris's heart. He's like, I've seen what you've done. I've seen you laugh. I've seen you care about people. So you're not just, your will is there. It's like, you just got to want it. And at the end of the day, fake Iris is like, I want, he's like, all you have to do is choose it. Do you want to be kind of connected to someone else, or do you want to be your own person? Not even just Iris. Do you want to just be yourself? And she's like, I choose me. And obviously that pissed off Eva, even Iris being like, find your Iris, and Eva kind of destroys her, and as she's breaking apart, even I'm kind of start tearing up. I was like, I know, and she's been deceitful and everything, but it's still kind of sad, especially because you're seeing her break, and she's like, I feel alive, and it's so heartbreaking, because it's like, even if she's a fake version of your wife, it's still gotta be hard. I mean, hell, you've already sadly you've literally seen your wife die, like, multiple times, because you saw her die because of Savitar, and then also because of Crisis, you saw her die as well. So it's like, now having her die in your arms like that still has to be, like, rough, even if it is a fake. And then Eva comes through, and even I was surprised. It's like, when she was hurting Barry, she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, why are you so, that's so interesting that there seems to be some form of humanity there. But for her, it's like, because she's like, I didn't want things to go down this way. It wouldn't have gone down this way. You would have used up your speed. You wouldn't have been an issue. You wouldn't have been a thorn in my side, and everything would have been okay. Like, it wouldn't have come down to this. But it's like, I need you out of my way. He's like, so you're going to kill me now? And she's like, no. Like, the fact of the matter is, I have no reason to kill you. You've lost most of your speed. Even look at you. You're not healing like you were before. So what would be the point? So at least she's not completely bloodthirsty, but obviously it's because her rage is more so pointed towards her husband. So she's basically like, stay out of my way and I'll stay out of yours. But basically, because of the mirror, she can literally be anywhere, so she's going to try and exact her revenge. And because of that, like, I guess there was only enough blood to get one person through. Probably maybe if Iris had followed right behind her, but at this point, like, especially now that Eva is going through, like, probably need her to get Iris through as well. But obviously it also reveals that Camilla and Singh are somewhere in that world. So Barry ended up passing out, but he wakes up and some of his wounds is healed up. But and it was actually kind of, interesting too, because Barry said the reason why his speed has been running hot the entire time is because he knew that, like, he was anxious, because the entire time he was trying to hurry up and find a way to activate the Speed Force, because he needs to, activate the artificial Speed Force, because he needs his speed, because he knew, like, Iris is out there somewhere, she could be in danger. And so that's why his emotions were kind of running hot, causing him to kind of run through a little bit more of his speed, because he was so agitated. And so with so little speed left, Ava out here in the world, him and Iris opposite sides of the mirror, not knowing that the other can hear them, still saying that, they love each other, and they're going to find, Barry's like, I'm going to find a way back to you. And she's like, I'm going to find a way back home. I'm going to get Singh. I'm going to get Camilla. Like, I don't, it's like, I want you to know that, like, I'm not giving up. Because even Iris is like, I know that you won't give up, it's like, and this is proof that they are who they are, because despite everything, neither one of them is willing to give up, or they're going to, to the end of the earth, like, to the end of the world rather, and back for each other, so it's kind of, it's a sad ending, especially now that, like, oh yeah, Iris is gone. But also, don't forget, fake Singh is still alive, so I'm sure Eva's going to use that to her advantage. But now they know that it's a fake Singh. I'm curious to see if she ends up destroying him or using him for some other purpose. Let's not also forget when fake Iris threw the bottle that had Ramsay's blood in it, there was still some in it. I'm assuming that crawled away at that moment, and I'm assuming that's going to play some role later on into his long game, whatever it is. I'm curious to see what the hell that ends up being. But at the same time, while all that's happening, there's actually, interestingly enough, another side of the episode where we have Ralph and Cisco looking in on Caitlin, but it turns out Caitlin's kind of running like super cold, and it's like, what's going? Basically, her body's kind of going into almost like a comatose like hibernation to kind of heal her. And they need to kind of wake her up, so they're kind of basically shocking her awake, using Ralph as kind of being the, Elastic Man. He's kind of like, I guess, he's the kind of perfect conductor for the electricity. Ends up getting blown back, and it's like, no, I'm good. How is Caitlin? Luckily, it worked out, and I love Ralph being like, oh, thank Elsa. But basically, Caitlin tried to like heal her wounds from her previous fights. But like her body treating it almost like a, her like almost like antibodies like kicked in and kind of put her in that state. So she has to turn to her mom yet again. They have their very, complicated relationship, but her mom's the only one she feels like can help her with. I'm curious to see what ends up happening with this. Like, I'm wondering, is it going to be a situation where sadly they are going to have to be separated or something? Like, we're going to get like Frost and Caitlin being separate people. I don't know. Because I'm just curious, are they going to keep up the whole like switching them back and forth type of situation? Maybe not. It might just be a thing of like, it might be like in both of their, like, if this probably keeps up, Caitlin will die, and if Caitlin dies, obviously Killer Frost might die. But it's like, I don't know. I'm curious to see what that storyline is. Like I said, it's like a smaller part of the episode, but I'm curious to kind of see what that kind of like eventually turns into. I'm ultimately curious to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good